And he said, "Do you still have that gun?" As most young men, most boys kind of dream of, I had a let's say mid-80s 930 slant nose poster on my wall as a kid growing up. And my parents always said, my question to them was, "Mom, Dad, how do I get that car?" And they always said, "You just have to work hard and you gotta be persistent." Finally, actually went to an actual Porsche event where they did their road show, had the opportunity to drive several different Porsches across the range. The experience just blew me away. I was astonished at what those cars were capable of. The dream kind of started to become a reality when I started looking and hunting for one. Saved for about 2 years. My budget, was somewhere in the mid-20s or so, but really wanted to stay under $20,000. And back in the 2007 to 2010 range, you could easily pick up an air-cooled 911 for dirt cheap compared to what they are today, certainly. And so I started looking, saving the money, saved for about 2 years, but every once in a while would just kind of check in and see, how available they were. All in all, started looking at about 20 cars, had about 10 pre-purchase inspections done, and I was losing faith, to say the least. So I finally found one on eBay, actually. Found the guy, searched for years and years, like I said. He was selling it for about $24,000, and I watched the auction, watched it end, and was just kind of like, you know what, another one gone. But something inside of me just said, you've got to message him. You've got to try and figure out, A, if the deal went through, because as you know, these deals come and go pretty easily, and oftentimes people don't pay. And so anyway, I just sent him a message out of the clear blue sky thinking he's not even going to respond. A week later, he responded and said, "The deal did fall apart, but I have another buyer, and if that doesn't work out, I'll call you." Kind of waited the week. It actually went back up on auction on eBay again, and I followed it again, and I said, "It's the same $24,000. So I sent him another message and I said, "Look, I'm dead serious about buying a car. I've looked at a lot of terrible cars, but I really, really like this car, and it's a beautiful Guards red with black interior, 140,000 miles on it. It had been well run. I wanted to take advantage of this situation, and as you might say, he was a shrewd negotiator, so I made him an offer over the phone, and I said, "Look, I'm dead serious. If this deal falls apart, please let me know. I'm very interested. You're in Nashville, I'll drive, I'll come pick up the car. We don't have to ship it or anything. I'll handle it. We'll get this deal done, let's do it." He finally agreed to my over the phone price, and my brother and I drove up to Nashville about 2 weeks after that last auction. We went into the warehouse, and I called a buddy of mine in Nashville and I said, "Hey, I'm coming to look at a Porsche." He knew about the whole story and what was going on. And I said, he says this warehouse is over in the southwest part of Nashville. Should I be concerned? And he said, "Do you still have that gun?" And I said, "I do. Should I bring it? Because I'm not sure. I planned on bringing a gun to purchase my dream car, but sometimes we make exceptions." So I brought my weapon just in case, as a precautionary measure, and I drove into what appeared to be kind of a luxury secondhand used automotive store. And I looked around and saw a lot of Mercedes and Beamers and stuff, and a couple of Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and it was like, where am I? Because this is not the best part of town. We had just crossed over the railroad tracks. And I called the guy and I said, "I think I'm here, but I don't really know. Can you confirm?" And I saw a head kind of poke around the side of the warehouse, and I said, "We're in the right place." So we drove around the corner, and me and my brother hop out of the truck, and this guy opens up 20-foot garage door. He had easily 20 to 30 cars, ranging from a Buick Riviera to Bronco number 1 ever, as well as a collection of probably another 20, 25 Broncos, classic Broncos, as well as 3 or 4 other Porsches, including the one that I was set to purchase. Long story short, we drive the car. I had agreed to $21,000 over the phone, and that was still kind of a little more outside my budget where I wanted to be, but I was comfortable paying it. After driving the car, we found that there was a bearing that was kind of going out in the car, in the transmission, as well as a couple synchronizers that were creating some issues. So again, him being a shrewd negotiator, we took another 10% off the price, got it under $20,000, just at $19,000. The car is just a dream to drive. Taking it to a couple track days now, of course, caffeine and octane. Just posted it on VINwiki, as a matter of fact, and I'm now starting to track the improvements and modifications, as well as just documenting what the car has been through, because to be honest, I didn't have much to go on when I found the car. I knew it was about a 3-owner car, so for an 86, that's pretty decent, not bad. It just ended up being kind of a cool day. And then we drove back that night. Fortunately, did not have to use any weaponry, but drove back that night, towed it behind my truck. You know, the trip from Nashville to Atlanta, it can be a little sketchy, especially at night when you're kind of going through some of the mountains and stuff. So we had made it probably just outside of Nashville, and I asked my brother to drive. I was exhausted from the day, and he said, "Are you sure about that? Because we're towing your brand new baby back there." And I said, "I am. I'm really exhausted. If you could drive the rest of the 3 hours, that'd be fantastic." So anyway, we get home and he says, "Gosh, I was really, really nervous." And I said, "I was also very, very nervous. So I'm glad you took the reins, but thank you for doing that." The 5-minute story here won't tell the 2 years worth of saving and looking and investigating cars. And then just the 2 years that it took me to find a car. Once I had the cash, that was the most exciting part, but then that's when the real journey started. But it was fun. It was fun looking at the cars. It was fun getting the inspections done, really learning what I should be looking for, what I need to definitely stay away from. It was just a really, really fun experience, the whole journey of finding the cars. I started kind of looking kind of partially in '07. And then really like 2010 is when I was like, okay, they've plateaued. We're gonna have to, it's now or never type thing, you know? Soon they're gonna be out of my price range. Now it's got about 159,000 miles. So it's not a daily driver by any stretch. When I do drive it, I drive it a lot. It's not just to run to the grocery store and back. Typically it's a mountain run, or like I said, up to the track. You know, I really want to enjoy, and a lot of people don't appreciate the fact that it doesn't have ABS, it doesn't have traction control, it doesn't have power steering. In fact, I mean, this is a giant go-kart with probably entirely too much power for 1986. That's where you really get to appreciate it, is on the track. But it's a very raw experience for sure. I think really over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years, I've probably only put about $1,500 to $2,500 into the car, and I drive it a lot. I mean, considering it's a third car. I think the biggest misconception about especially the air-cooled Porsches is that while the values are increasing, the maintenance is relatively inexpensive. I mean, when you consider, you know, a newer 911 with tires and brakes and all the expendable stuff that is a considerable cost if you drive the car a lot. To be able to purchase my dream car for less than $20,000, number one, is a feat in and of itself. But then for the expendables, for the you know, the stuff that the wear and tear really hasn't been that bad at all. In fact, $2,500 is nothing when, you know, through the course of say 5 years. The beautiful thing about that, and I understand why most people would want the latest and greatest. I think it's fantastic. The new technology to me is unbelievable with what those cars are capable of. But for me, this is one of the best values I think that you can possibly get, as close to a supercar, at least in that time, as you could certainly get.